Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear beings. Just getting my screen set up appropriately. And also a very good day to anyone who's watching, listening later. And it's always lovely to feel you all arriving, to feel that connection, all our different places that we're in, and also the way that we're bringing the outdoors into the space as well. All the different outdoor conditions we might be in, and the abundance of the spring. Most of us, it's spring. Maybe one or two people, it's autumn. So here we are again, still here, still now, contemplating this theme together. So let's take a moment to just sense that being here now. Take a pause. Feeling the simplicity of just a moment of being here. Being here, being aware in this moment. And how precious it is to have this capacity of awareness. And over our last time together, I've been kind of suggesting, pointing us to the sense of meditation as a learning to stay steady in the center of a turning world, to borrow T.S. Eliot's language, finding our still point at the center of a turning world. And yesterday we spoke about the 8 so-called worldly winds. Although the Buddha didn't actually call them winds, he said these are the conditions that spin around the world, and the world spins around them. And these are, of course, pain and pleasure, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and disrepute, or status and disgrace is another translation for those. And what usually happens is that, or what happens when we're not wisely reflecting, or we're just being reactive, is that our minds get all wrapped up in them. We get identified with them and find ourselves in Thanissaro Bhikkhu's language, welcoming and rebelling against these conditions. So we find ourselves in a constant reactivity to these fluctuating conditions. And in a way, they spin us out further and further from this still place in the center. But what we're learning to do as meditators is to tap into the wisdom that can see that these are simply that. They are changing conditions that fluctuate according to circumstance. And we don't have to get so identified with them. We don't have to get so caught up in our reactivity towards them. But we can just witness their coming and going and acknowledge their conditioned nature, and maybe use this wise reflection that these things are in constant, stressful, and subject to change. They're anicca, they're impermanent, they are dukkha, they are inherently stressful. That in that there's no place in that spin to take a steady stance. There was a very good question from Sue yesterday that I missed until after we'd finished the session in the chat about, well, that's all very well. I'm putting words into your mouth, Sue, if you're here. But the question, where does joy fit into all of this? If we're supposed to just sit with equanimity in the midst of these ups and downs, what happens to joy? So, of course, we need joy. In fact, we need joy more than ever, I would say. And joy is a really important, intrinsic part of the cultivation of this path in all its forms, from the most subtle to the most profound sorts of joy that we experience as a human being. But a question for us as meditators is, well, what is joy? What is happiness? And where is it really to be found? And because we're practicing, we're focusing our attention these mornings on the present moment, being here now, I would suggest that we could really explore, well, what is joy in the present moment? In a moment where you catch yourself experiencing some joy of whatever degree, really feeling in, looking closely, well, what is this experience of enjoy or enjoyment of a moment, which we naturally often associate with the arising of a wished for and agreeable experience. Often it's kind of ushered in. An experience of joy is ushered in by something pleasant arising or some piece of good fortune, or by the ending of something that we don't want, or the ending of something unpleasant or painful. When we investigate closely, it seems to me that in this experience of feeling joy or enjoyment, there's an absence of welcoming and rebelling, to use the language we were using yesterday. There's an absence of either trying to grasp at something that's not already here, or an absence of trying to get rid of something that's here. So there's a relaxation, there's an ease, there's a kind of moment of the heart that comes from contentment, from appreciation, a kind of unconditional yes for this moment, and a lightness and a freedom in that, and even a celebration. And often when we're kind of caught in the momentum from past to future, this momentum that we feel of always kind of being on this journey, rushing forward from past to future, we actually don't linger in our experience long enough to actually taste that. It's like something pleasant happens, something we want to have happens, and the immediate thing is, how can I get more of it? How can I make it stay? We're already planning for the next moment instead of really landing in and inhabiting our contentment, our gladness, our joy, our appreciation. Even the experience of generosity that we reflect on every morning when we're here. What does it actually feel like as an experience when the heart is feeling generosity? It's a very joyful thing. That's why it's made so much of as a foundation for practice. So to really allow ourselves to tune into, to have our radar open for these experiences of joy, and actually feel what they're like. So goodwill also, another thing that easily arises as we tune in and connect with each other, and feel the immense goodwill that's present in this Sangha, in this community. Our goodwill towards each other, but also our goodwill towards ourselves as caring for our practice and the way that we want to show up in the world. The goodwill is kind of, can be limitless. And so in that, there's an enjoyment and a lightness. And notice how this kind of joy or enjoyment is less dependent on things going the way I want them to go. It's less dependent. It may be triggered by something from the outside, but actually, as we begin to really reflect on, to digest what the actual experience is, we don't necessarily even need something from the outside to trigger it. We can start to find that from within in our relationship to the world, or we can become a little bit more easily moved to joy. Again, as we decouple ourselves somewhat from these ups and downs of circumstance. And then when we do experience pain or difficulty, we have this greater resilience in us, that the pain or the difficulty becomes a kind of a smaller event in a generally more contented, happier mind. And maybe we don't add so much to the experience of the pain or difficulty. And this is again where this wise reflection on the ups and downs of life can be very useful, can be very beneficial, because we recognize that this pain is an inevitable result of circumstances. And maybe sometimes many pains are just the flip side of some happy or fortunate circumstance that we've experienced. And we know when we reflect wisely that the two things just go together. So, a silly example that it's raining today, and the rain, actually it's dying down a bit now, but 10 minutes ago the rain was really smashing against my window. And if one thought that I need sunny mornings here to be happy, I'd be deeply disappointed. But we all know that we need both, and that the garden, the ground, nature around is grateful for this rain. And I could also, and this is something we do with our mind states or whatever, I could look at the rain and think, my day is ruined. I am indeed planning to meet a an old friend for a walk today, and I could wake up and look at this weather and think our walk is ruined. But actually, the reality is I don't know. And thanks to weather forecasts, I can even say, well, actually, it looks like it's going to clear up in an hour or two. If we didn't have weather forecasts, it would be different. It would be more like, well, I don't know, but let's see. But we so often do add on the piece, and my day is ruined, to whatever experience. And then we experience all the emotional reactivity that comes with that. And then that colors the way we meet the next moment, the next moments of the day. So when we sit still in the center of the spin of our experience, we can sit still in a way that, and I'm using sit still in a kind of metaphorical way as well. We can sit still in a way where we deliberately make ourselves available to attune ourselves to joy, to contentment. And Bhikkhu Analayo points out, invites us to notice that there may even be a subtle joy to simply being present. When we can simply be present, there's a certain, I'm adding to this, but if we, again, this is something we can investigate in our meditation practice and in our practice generally. In the moment when I'm really inhabiting this moment, when I'm not caught in the spin, is there a subtle joy here? An enjoyment simply of this moment of being alive, which doesn't really so much depend on either getting what I want or getting rid of what I don't want. This moment is as it is. How amazing. I know, I appreciate that that's hard to hear and hard to tune into when this moment contains a lot of pain or difficulty. But even in such a moment, it's like, how do we inhabit the moment with the maximum amount of ease that's possible? Again, an ongoing exploration for each of us. Enough for this morning. Let's go quiet and meditate together. So, changing your posture if you wish to for our meditation time. Taking a deep breath to arrive more fully into this moment. On our exhale, connecting with the earth beneath. Resting our weight into the earth. As we rest our weight into the earth, maybe like trees, sending roots down into the earth, also feeling ourselves rising up out of it and open into space. Sensing the space around us and the soundscape. And if we can, tapping into, tuning the mind to becoming sensitive to any sense of goodwill that's present for this community, for these teachings, for the life that's around us, whether that's two-legged or four-legged, many-legged, or the green life that's around us. And noticing what goodwill feels like in this moment. What it feels like in the body. And then seeing where the attention wants to come to rest or could come to rest. Might linger a little with the feeling of goodwill if that's very evident for you. Or it might find its way naturally to the quiet rhythm of the breath. The touch of the body. Or the felt sense of the body, almost like a field of energy. It becomes a little less dense with the in-breath, and a little denser with the out-breath. Or just listening to the sounds as they come and go. finding our own way to steadiness in the middle of the flow of experience, and resting here together. You might notice how these worldly winds need thought to sustain them. There's a connection between being lost in the worldly winds and lost in thought. So if we're experiencing an up or a down, a sense of pleasure or pain or joy or sorrow, can we just recognize that joy in the present moment feels like this, or sorrow, difficulty feels like this? And moving away from the spin of the story to the center of our experience and tending to it there. making space for the joy, making space for the difficulty, making space around the difficulty. How does that feel in the body? And how can I bring some ease? Find some ease. The ground which supports and the breath which calms and nourishes, one breath at a time. And remembering we're still here, still now, still meditating together. What helps us to stay present? Maybe this putting a frame of one breath around our experience. Almost as if the breath could contain all our thoughts rather than a thought contain our world. And as we come towards the end of the meditation, just really noticing if there's any sense of steadiness, of ease, of well-being, of enjoyment, of goodwill, however subtle, maybe even just a degree of more gentleness around whatever difficulties we might be also experiencing. It's soaking up, so not to judge or even particularly evaluate our meditation, but just to drink up the nourishment that's here. Let it soak into our system. And then dedicating any benefit that arises from our practice for the welfare of all beings.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.